to us. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this August hybrid meeting of the Integrated Joint Board. I would like to remind all attendees that this meeting is being recorded and webcast live on the Council's YouTube channel. I have agreed the attendance of some... If we can mute, if we haven't already. Thank you. I have agreed the attendance of some members remotely and would remind all remote attendees to mute their microphones when not speaking, please. For any members of the public watching, please note that all the public committee reports, including details of specific recommendations, are available on the Council website. So, without further ado, we'll just continue with the agenda. So, firstly, Liz, could you inform of apologies, please?
Thank you, Convener. We have apologies from Councillor Julie Bell, Andrew Thompson, Nicky Worrell and Barbara Tucker, with Ron McCombsky substituting. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest and statements of transparency that committee should hear before the meeting? No. Thank you. So before we move on to the minutes, I would just like to thank all contributors for reports contained within today's agenda. It is a busy agenda, so if all those speaking to the reports could consider that the papers have been read, please. Simply draw out the highlights and, of course, be available for any questions. With it being such a busy agenda, I do propose taking a comfort break, either just before or after item number 12. Sandy, we'll see how we're doing for time. So, Jill, over to you and the minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. So just in relation to the minutes from the previous meeting, in terms of accuracy, are people happy to support, or do they have any amendments that they would wish to make? Somebody to second? Yeah, thank you. And on to the action log. I think members will see quite a short action log. We continue to progress the elements of the log itself, so we do have an update on the substance use financial recovery plan, and that is included within the financial update paper, and there is still the one in progress in relation to pharmacy and prescribing management group, and that's ongoing.
Thank you. No questions on the action log? If not, it comes to us for noting, so we'll consider it duly noted. Thank you. And we'll go to the Chair's Assurance Report for the Strategic Planning Group, please, for noting.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is the Chair's Assurance Report for Strategic Planning Group. We last met on the 31st of July. And the discussions and the decisions taken by SPG are detailed within the paper, a few of which are on the agenda for today's IJB committee as well. Just to bring members' attention to the discussion around the locality improvement groups, there was a really good piece of work done on the locality improvement groups, and there's further consultation to happen in relation to that, but just to acknowledge the work done around that.
Thank you again, Jill. If there are no further questions, we'll consider that duly noted too. And on to D, the Chair's Assurance Report for the Audit Committee.
Thanks, Chair. Just a standard report as usual, highlighting any issues that the IGB should be aware of or any points of interest. I won't spend too much time on it in view of the remarks you made earlier on. I assume everybody's read it. Just one point I'd like to bring your attention to is that there are certain long-standing issues like large hospitals set aside, lead partner services that kind of previously been reported via finance reports. That in future these will be highlighted in an appendix to this report just to make it more visible. Not saying anything against finance reports, but maybe this is a good place. Thank you. I don't know if Sandy wants to say anything.
Sandy?
Only that I do write both reports anyway, so I'm quite happy wherever it goes. You know, as a side, or a follow-on to that, that's a recommendation from our internal auditors to just to try and bring the issues that we discuss in the audit committee closer together and align them with this paper. So I think it does make sense going forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew, and Sandy, it seems, for this report. Thank you very much. Okay, so that takes us swiftly on to number 4, and I'll invite Jill back to speak to the Chief Officer update. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, again, I'm not going to go through it in detail. I will assume that members have read the report, but just to bring members' attention to a few things, because I'm aware that this is quite a detailed report. So just in relation to the Creating Hope Together delivery plan, April to March 26, just to confirm that Angus are updating their own local delivery plan in relation to this, and that will come back to the IGB at a future meeting. The workforce information that was asked for at the IGB in June, we have included within the workforce section of the Chief Officer update. And the AWI members will be remember previous internal audit in relation to the level of assurance around that. A follow-up audit has taken place and we have received substantial assurance from our internal auditors around that. So just to acknowledge and commend the work that the service has taken forward in relation to that. The other thing just to bring members' attention to is the Audit Scotland report, the IGB Finance and Performance Report 2024. And again, this report does include some recommendations for IGBs, and we will bring an update report to a future audit committee. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, I'll pause for questions. There's none in the room and none online. So Jill, I'll just echo your comments and thank the officers for their continued hard work in this area. Some really good work. Thank you for the report and the narrative around it. So this report comes to the IGB for noting. Duly noted. Thank you. So we'll go on to number 5. Yourself again, the revised annual work plan and reporting schedule.
Members will see the revised work plan in front of them. What we have done, as discussed at previous IGBs, is where an action point relates to a further report coming back to the IGB. We have included that on the work plan. As things arise over the course in between IGBs, we will update the work plans in accordance to what we need to bring back to the IGB, or indeed bring to the IGB. So that's just for noting, Chair.
Thank you. So we are being asked to approve the updated work plan and reporting schedule for 24-25 and acknowledge that the annual work plan reporting schedule for the same period will be... Apologies, never saw the question there. I will pause the recommendations.
Sorry, thank you. Just for a point of clarification, it is very difficult to track what has changed from the previous presentation, and I wonder, either, given that it's welcome that we get this regularly, if there are any changes, whether they can be annotated or referred to in the narrative, one way or the other. So, because apart from, as I did, sitting two of them side by side, you don't know what's changed. And I do have a question in relation to that, because the Angus and Dundee stroke rehab pathway review was scheduled for June, referred to this meeting, and it's not on the schedule anymore. And so that is a question in relation to...
Okay, yeah, absolutely take on that feedback, thank you, and we will include any amendments in the current position so that we can detail and track what has changed from the previous meeting. In relation to the stroke pathway, there is a lot of work that's ongoing around that, and at this moment in time we're not sure when a further update will be ready to come back to the IGB. However, we will acknowledge that on future iteration of the work plan and acknowledge that a time is to be confirmed.
Thanks, Jill. Thanks, David. Welcome the contribution. Thank you. So if there are no further questions, just to remind you of the recommendations. So we're being asked to approve the work plan and reporting schedule for 24-25 and acknowledge that the annual work plan reporting schedule will be presented with progress updates at each IGB as a standing agenda item. Thank you all. So we'll move on to number 6 and the timetable of meetings for IGB and IGB Audit Committee. Okay. So it's simply here for noting. Are there any questions on the timetable? We'll consider that as read. and we'll move on to paper number 7 and our appointments. Please, Jill.
Thank you, Chair. Going with the way of the meeting so far, so we will assume that individuals have read the appointments paper. Just to acknowledge there's quite a few recommendations in this paper around the changes to be made to the Angus IJB. I think just before we go on to the recommendations themselves, just to say thank you to Nikki Worrell, who has stepped away from her role within Scottish Care and is obviously no longer a member of Angus IJB. So just to formally pass thanks on to Nikki. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jill. Okay. So we'll pause for some questions. So firstly, we'll come to the room, and we have Andrew, please.
Thanks, Chair. Just a point of clarification. Nikki Worrell, she's also a member of the Audit Committee, and that will leave a vacancy there as well.
Thank you. Okay, we'll pick that up in due course. Thanks very much, Andrew. Okay, if there are no further questions in relation to the appointments paper, I will proceed to the recommendations. I don't propose to read them all out word for word, but I will take them in order. Is everyone content to approve number 1? Recommendation number 2? Recommendation number 3? Recommendation number 4? 5? 6? 7?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Regarding 7, Andrew has just noted we have an impending vacancy on the Audit Committee when Nikki leaves, or as of the end of October. We already have a current vacancy on the Audit Committee, and that recommendation there looks for us to fill that vacancy ideally today. It's a relatively small cohort of people that are eligible to fill that vacancy. It has to come from the NHS Tayside voting membership. So if we could maybe, if it would be okay with you, we do have a potential volunteer to fill that, which we could maybe, I believe Sam is going to volunteer to fill that.
Thank you, Sandy. Yes, Peter and Sandy and I have spoken. Yes, I will step forward to that. Thank you.
So, formal process, a proposer and a seconder. So we have Sandy proposing inclusion on the Audit Committee, and we have George seconding. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you for that intervention. And we move finally to recommendation number 8 for approval. Regards Eunice McLennan, Head of Community Healthcare Services Extension. Lovely. Thank you all. We'll consider all approved. So we now move on to number 8, and we have Jill introducing the Mental Health and Learning Disability Programme update.
Thank you, Chair, and John's also going to join me just to give a fuller update. So members will be aware that we considered the Angus position in relation to our priority around mental health and wellbeing at the June IJB, and that included our progress around the actions from the regional mental health and wellbeing programme. We had a development session. Some members attended the NHS Tayside development session, and we had a further development session on Friday where we gave an update in terms of the progress, and the report was deferred from the June IJB to allow members to attend that development session. So this report is brought forward as a progress update, and I'll just hand over to John for some further information.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Chair. Yes, this report is really to provide the IGB an update on the progress being made with the Mental Health and Learning Disabilities programme. You'll see within the report the programme vision is for whole system change and encompasses 3 key elements: the provisioning of excellent care and treatment for those requiring inpatient treatment through a redesigned service model, a co-produced model of care with all stakeholders, including service users, and partnership with commission providers to deliver coming home so that people with learning disabilities receive the right support at home or in their community to minimise the likelihood of hospital admission. The report does highlight progress has been made in creating the conditions for these changes to move forward through new models of care, and that's really a move away from previous action planning for improvement. And an early draft of a single model of care has been shared with the programme board, with the establishment of a steering group that includes advocacy organisations to ensure ongoing good stakeholder engagement. And as Jill highlighted, we've had recent sessions that have taken place that Angus IGB members have been able to attend. You'll see within the paper it covers this financial framework and commissioning. Public health input is crucial to that going forward. We'll support a detailed finance and commissioning model with a focus on shifting the balance of care from inpatient services to community-based provisions, and there'll be an opportunity for the IGB to consider this framework in early 2025. In regards to learning disability service redesign, there have been sessions at the V&A, and that has generated ideas for whole system redesign, with further development and refinement of the model continuing over this year. And importantly, engagement and co-production, that's something that runs through the work that's ongoing, and the Care and Share Together approach is there to ensure ongoing and meaningful engagement. And those who were present at one of the recent sessions will attest to the strong voice of service users leading to the co-production framework, and they'll note the 2 recommendations within the paper. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill, and thank you, John. So I will pause for questions, firstly in the room. I don't see any. Yes, I do. Apologies.
Thank you. Thanks for the update, John. In terms of the learning disability service redesign, I see there's further development and refinement of the model of excellence that's taken place over this year. So just wonder if there's a bit more information about the mechanism for that and how that work is being taken forward. Thank you.
So I think it'll be taken forward in a very similar way to the Care and Share approach for the general adult psychiatry approach, Kirsty, and they're just in the infancy of that work. The report out from the V&A's not long come out, and the group are looking together as to how to take that forward.
Thank you, Kirsty. And moving on to the screen, we have Lois, please.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, so this report is linked obviously to agenda item, and there was mention in terms of coming home. Can you just kind of bring this report to life a little bit more and just describe what exactly that means and in terms of the term coming home, and how will Angus be looking to implement that? What progress is being made?
Thanks, Councillor Speed, for the question. So coming home is a national policy from the Scottish Government, and the crux of it really is where it is appropriate and suitable for individuals to receive care and support within their own home or within their community, that we should do all that we can to support that going forward. Obviously, that's notwithstanding some of the significant challenges that are often associated with some of the complex and high-level needs that individuals may have that require quite specialist provision, and it would be naive to say that all areas have that sorted. It's a challenge. It's a challenge that we're very aware of, and through the LD redesign work, it's certainly something that's being kept very closely in mind as we move forward. Obviously, there is the link to local implementation plans to ensure that we have all community services involved. You'll see within other papers as well, the role of primary care, GPs, community pharmacies are crucial to what we do in Angus to ensure that we have those services and resources available for local people. But it's a challenge, and it's certainly one that we're seeking to address as best we can through the redesign work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Speed, and thank you, John. Okay, if there are no further questions, Sandy, would you like to come in?
Chair, can I just come in with an additional comment that's related to this? Yep. Just to make board members aware that in the overall scheme of our delivery of mental health services, we have had some relatively recent updates regarding some of our funding streams for mental health. In previous years, we've received a series of discrete allocations to support our mental health service delivery, not the core delivery, but things around the core delivery. This year, the Scottish Government have grouped or bundled a few of those allocations together, and have also introduced an element of efficiency target on that. So I just thought it was worth mentioning to the board, because The scale of the kind of almost the efficiency level we feel is probably running on a regional Tayside-wide allocation of about £10 million. Getting near to about 10% of that funding is subject to some kind of level of efficiency required due to the way the allocations have been determined. And I suppose I just wanted to share that because although that's a regional picture, it's just another example of the complications and challenges that we deal with, in this case, in this particular service area. But as I said, just an example of the challenge that we face more generally. So I just thought I'd raise that, given that we're discussing a mental health paper in particular. Thanks, Chair.
That's helpful, Sandy. Thank you. Kirsty.
Yeah, it's a comment if that's okay. John referenced the briefing that we'd had, and it was really to say the progress in terms of enhanced community support was really positive to hear. I think that when it comes back for an update later in the year, we'll get more on that. But I have to say, I think the work that's gone into that in terms of looking at the kind of social model of support, early intervention, being led by people who use services was really positive to hear. So just to make that comment, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. It's encouraging to hear. Thank you very much. Okay. I don't see any hands in the room nor on the screen. So if everyone's content, I'll move us all to the recommendations on page 41. So it is recommended that the IJB acknowledge and support progress being made within Mental Health and Learning Disabilities programme and support a further update to come in December 24 and modify the IJB work plan to reflect such. If everyone is content to approve, we will do just that. Thank you very much. Thank you, John. So if we can move on to item number 9 and our learning disabilities update, inpatients update, which I will ask Jill to introduce.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to introduce this paper. I am supported today by Sandra McLeod, who's the Interim Deputy Chief Exec for NHS Tayside, Claire Pearce, Board Nurse Director, and Elaine Watson, yep, you are there, Director of HR in Tayside. So I think that there's a lot of information that is included in the cover paper and indeed the NHS Tayside paper. We have had the session on Friday where IJB members had the opportunity to hear and receive more information from a background perspective to the current position regarding inpatients. I'm just going to invite Sandra to come in, if that's okay, Sandra, and to talk to the paper itself.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Chair. The paper that you have before you, the purpose of that is really to raise awareness of each of the IJBs and the NHS Board of an operational decision that has been undertaken based on issues that we have experienced within the Learning Disability Assessment Unit at Carsview and also within the Strathmartin site. The paper outlines how the context of this decision making, the rationale that's been provided for it, and makes some recommendations for our IJB colleagues to raise their awareness and for noting. I'm happy to take any questions, and as I said, I've got colleagues on the call that will help support any key questions.
Thank you very much. So I believe we have a statement that is going to be read out from the staff side. So if I could invite Ron to come in at this moment in time, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just bear with me, so I'll read this statement out if you don't mind. Okay, so this is a statement from all trade unions and professional organisations on behalf of staff regarding move of LDAU Strathmartin to Murray Royal. Whilst we as staff organisations agree from the building environment is not suitable, many previous reports have stated that whilst an option is being worked on, that the environment should be kept up to standard, yet none of this has been done. In every report from pre-2017 to date, all comments on the therapies that are provided for both inpatient and daycare as being second to none, yet if they move to Murray Royal, the department won't be able to be replicated, which will have a detrimental effect on the patients, both daycare and inpatient. Existing and early feedback from all the workforce is greater than 80%. They will not transfer to Murray Royal. Therefore, the service will not be viable. Staff morale has always been reported via various reports, including the Mental Welfare Commission, as being very low. However, they are extremely concerned for the upset that this is causing to the patients and relatives, and fear the detrimental effect this potential move will have on their patients. Considering the experiences that the majority of staff saw in 2018, we cannot understand why no other area has been or will be looked at, given that the majority of patients and relatives live in the Dundee and Angus area. The majority of inpatients in Strathmartin are mostly delayed discharges, and therefore we would ask that the priority is to make sure that they get the right care in the right place, preferably within our communities. We ask that Tayside NHS Board and the IGBs learn lessons from the past and listen this time to patients, relatives and carers, staff and trade unions before doing any more. Moving to Murray Royal is just moving into another site which is not suitable for this group of patients and will be detrimental to their health. We would ask that the board look at other options which all groups could sign up for. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that statement. So we are also joined by Claire Pearce and Elaine Watson from the NHS that can support us in responding to any questions that anyone either in the room or on the screen may have. And I would just like to open up to questions now, unless, of course, Claire and Elaine would like to say anything at this moment in time. If do so, just raise your hand. So we have a question on the screen, first and foremost, from Councillor Speed, and then we'll come into the room. Thanks.
Yep, thanks, Peter. So my question is, sorry, just bear with me a second while I find my page. Can you please confirm why maintenance within Strathmartin was not better carried out to an appropriate standard to provide a better level of care required, and how are NHS balancing human cost against financial, and why is Murray Royal apparently able to provide a better facility? Why hasn't Dundee and Angus managed to provide the same, isn't going to be able to provide the same service in the same way? Thank you, Lois. We'll ask.
Yeah, apologies if I'm sitting in the wrong place. I was slightly. Sorry. I'm fine here, if that's okay. Yeah, save interrupting your meeting. I'll bring probably the Nurse Director, Claire Pearson, if that's possible, after I've started to answer the question. There has been maintenance work that has been undertaken at Strathmartin, but I think what was recommended and noted in 2017 is that the site then was not fit for purpose with regard to a therapeutic environment. So there has been some maintenance work, but ultimately the length and the purpose, sorry, I should start again. The work that has been undertaken has been to fix immediate issues and to help redesign the environment for patients that are there. But even with that redesign work, and what's been undertaken is still not making the environment fit for purpose. There isn't a balance of, this is a balance between, it's a patient safety issue, which I'm sure Claire will come in and highlight, that's making this key decision to move forward. So that's one of the key considerations we've made. We're also very cognizant of the work that, all the risks that have been highlighted earlier in the statement, and there is a task and finish group that's set up with relevant work streams to address each of those and to help move those forward. We are cognizant of the impact this will have on staff and patients, and we'll be working very closely with people to make sure that we can address that forward. With regards to not having an environment within Dundee and within Angus, and there is one in Perth, Perth is a purpose-built unit for a mental health facility. I think it's well recognised, and I think John had highlighted earlier, the Coming Home report is fundamentally how people are trying to get into community and live in environments that are suitable for them. There isn't the environments within Angus, and there isn't the environments within Dundee, and I think the delayed discharges attributes to that. If there was suitable environments, I'm confident that each of the IGBs and the local authorities would be supplying that isn't there at the moment. So what we have is a need to move patients to a more suitable environment. But I will pass over to Claire, who will hopefully be able to give from a nursing executive perspective. Is that okay? Through you, Chair. Thank you.
In you come, Claire. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Speed, for your question. As Sandra's already highlighted, long-standing issues regarding the appropriateness of the environment in Strathmartin for this vulnerable group of patients. We've had a recent external inspection which highlighted areas of concern that had not been escalated. The Learning Disability Leadership Team enacted a rapid response plan to ensure immediate actions were taken to address the concerns raised in the report in relation to the environment and in relation to infection control. It's my opinion as Board Nurse Director, and Dr Cotton, the Medical Director, is unfortunately in another meeting, so I'm speaking on both our behalves. It's of our view that Strathmartin ward environment does not and will not be able to provide a therapeutic environment for this group of patients, and we require to expedite the move to single site for inpatient learning disability services, and we feel that consolidating to a single site will benefit our patients. Hope that's helpful.
Thank you.
Just a follow-up, Chair, is that okay?
Of course, Lewis, in you come.
Yeah, sorry, I'm still seeking clarity. It's been stated that these are long-standing issues. So given the considerable time that this has been rumbling on for, why hasn't there been progress and an ability to provide something better or source something better, build something better within Dundee and Angus? If I could have some clarity on that, because I'm still not understanding.
Certainly, thanks, Lewis. Sandra's offering to come in. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and we'll attempt to answer that. I can answer that to the best of my ability, and I'm sure colleagues may well be able to help support me on the screen or in the room. My understanding, for the reason that nothing has been built within Angus and Dundee, that would be from an NHS Tayside perspective. The decisions that were strategic decisions that were made in 2017 and 2018, albeit contested in some areas, were to move to a single site within the Murray Royal area, which formed part of the estate. There wasn't any consideration. I think the options that were put forward at the time viewed multiple different options, and each of those recommended closure of Strathmartin and also moving to a single site. That was a preferred option that was put forward after a lengthy consultation in 2017. I can't answer the question as to why there has been nothing built within Angus or Dundee in regards, but from a NHS Tayside perspective, I can answer. So sure.
Thank you, Sandra. I'm going to invite Jill in at this moment in time. Thanks.
Thank you, Sandra, and thank you, Lois. Just in an attempt to give a list in terms of how we are working and have been working to support the individuals within the inpatient facility. So Linda's also here from the Learning Disability Team and has been working on an ongoing basis to look at what options have been and are available to support the individuals. And Sandra rightly said that if we had identified something sooner for individuals to transfer their care to, then we absolutely would have done that. However, what this move doesn't mean is that takes any other options off the table for us, and we will continue to work to see what other options may be available for us in the future to be able to provide care for those individuals in a different place, closer to home.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Lewis, so we'll move into the room now, and we have a question from Kirsty, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. The staff statement referenced the significant upset and disruption to service users in Strathmartin. My question is about how we are assessing and mitigating the impact of that now, but with specific reference to Angus service users whose families will potentially be the most impacted given the distance they'll have to travel, service users and patients moving out of the area, etc. So keen to understand how we're considering that from a local perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Elaine Watson in at this moment in time, if possible, and then.
That's a separate question, Chair.
Chair, my comments were more in relation to the staff rather than the service. If you want to come back to me after the question that's been put into the room is answered, I'm happy to do that.
That's lovely. Thank you. Jill, in you come.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Kirsty, for the question. As Sandra's alluded to, there's a number of work streams that are established, and one is looking at how we can support patients themselves, other service users, and obviously carers and parents of individuals who are there. So there is work underway to support things like travel, etc. I think it is fair to say that there is an updated EQIA that is in progress, and we have and will continue to contribute to that from an Angus perspective, so that we're clear around the level of service that is being provided and how that does support individuals. I don't know if Linda wants to come in on any of that, but there is a lot of work going on. There's been ongoing discussions with service users, families and carers in terms of identifying and supporting their needs.
Okay, thank you. Elaine, can I invite you to come in now in relation to the staff?
Yep, certainly. Thank you, Chair. So just to make some comments regarding the statement that Ron read out, and the position in terms of the staff at both Carsview and Strathmartin. So just really want to acknowledge that any change of this nature on individuals that work within the service is completely acknowledged, how difficult that can be. And we do have a number of staff, particularly on the Strathmartin site, who have been working at that site for a long time. And a move to Perth is challenging for them. And we do appreciate the initial intel that the unions have provided from their very early conversations with their members. Just to reassure and assure everyone that there's going to be a very robust process to support staff through the transition. Staff that don't wish to move to Murray Royal will not be expected to. We will work with them to understand their preferences and make sure that should they wish to continue their career within the Tayside area and within Dundee in particular, that we'll work to support them with that. We are working on a plan to ensure that the choices that are available to them are known to them, so that they have a vision of what that can look like. We're starting early conversations with staff in the next week or so, with their working in partnership with staff side to ensure that they're involved in those conversations, and there will be a plan and a process aligned with the workforce policies and procedures that we have in place that make sure that staff are cared for in the best way that we can possibly do that.
Thank you, Elaine. Okay, we have a question in the room. George, please. Thanks.
Yeah, mine is actually going back, sorry, one if that's okay. It's regarding the offer of support to families, given that certainly people from Angus may have to travel quite a distance. Would it be possible to receive some information in the future on the uptake of that support? I mean, not who asked for it, but just numbers, amount, that sort of thing. Would that be okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Councillor Meehan, one of the recommendations is indeed to bring further information back on a regular basis, so we can make sure that we can include the updates from the individual work streams and specific information around Angus in those.
Thanks for the question, George, and thank you, Jill. So I don't see any further questions on the screen or in the room. I think we'll all agree that this is a particularly challenging situation. I just want to extend my thanks to all officers that are seeking to address it. We do have a question in the room. I'll come to it in the screen. I'll just come to it in a second. I've certainly taken assurance from what I've heard that patient safety will be paramount throughout the whole decision-making process, and also took great reassurance from following on from the statement read out by Ron that no staff will be forced to move to the single site if that is not their wish. So before we move on to the recommendations, I'll open up to a question on the screen from Lois.
So it's just a comment, Peter, if that's okay.
Of course.
Oh, we'll be on to comments now. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Unfortunately, I don't feel assured or reassured today. We have had a previous report that talks about coming home that I think that we all agree and all applaud and all should be striving to ensure happens. And then we have this report today that talks about moving families, moving individuals and families 100 miles away, a 100-mile trip it will be for those families to visit their loved one. If you're up north in Montrose, travelling to Perth, Murray Royal, that's a 100-mile round trip, and you'll be lucky if you're able to catch a bus. I just do not think that this is right. There has been so much time to be able to make a difference and bring about a better outcome. And I guess what I'm really looking to see is I mean, this report and the recommendations, is there anything different that we can do here today to halt this direction, convener?
Thank you, Lois. Claire, would you mind providing a response to the comment? Thank you. Sandra? Please do.
Yeah, I understand we have undertaken a robust assessment and rationale about the decision that we've taken. We do absolutely acknowledge the difficulties for families, and we do acknowledge that some people will have to travel. It's also our understanding that within the patients, and I think as the staff partnership and staff side statement highlighted, is that there is a number of people who are delayed discharges. I would emphasise the joint work that has been getting undertaken by both inpatients and by the IGB colleagues and the Health and Social Care partnerships to find appropriate placements within people's local environments. And I think just to emphasise what Jill said is that work won't stop. But unfortunately, the environment in which we are caring for people at the moment requires us to necessitate a move. And we do understand that the difficulties that's there, and that's how we intend to work well with families, but we do need to continue with this process, mindful that if in any way that people's discharge can be supported before that time or before that move, that's what everyone is striving to help achieve.
Thank you, Sandra. And Claire, if I could bring you in now. Thank you.
Apologies, Chair. I didn't realise you meant me. Sorry. Yes, I would agree with Sandra. It's not the right therapeutic environment for these patients. And I know we've already rehearsed that we've known it's long-standing, the appropriateness of the environment, but this inspection has highlighted concerns that are sufficient, that the medical director and myself feel that we would be compromising this group of people if we kept them on Strathmartin site. So I do genuinely appreciate the difficulty, and we will have to work with families and work with hopefully getting people home to their home, their final home. But at the moment, we can't support people staying in Strathmartin due to the lack of therapeutic environment.
Thank you, Claire. Okay, if there are no further questions or comments, I'll move us to the recommendations on page 44. So we're being asked, IGB, to acknowledge the content of the report on the Tayside Inpatient Learning Disability Service, consider the request to reaffirm the strategic direction agreed in 2018 with regards to the move to the single site, recognise the development of a comprehensive programme of work, I'll come back, accept the intention to provide quarterly progress reports to the IJB and request the Chief Officer to ensure they are provided accordingly, and request the Chief Officer to bring back a further paper to the IJB detailing commissioning requirements for inpatients. I'm not entirely sure at which one the hand came up, so I'll take the comment or question regards the recommendations just now, Lois, and you come.
Yeah, sorry, I just put it up before, just so I wasn't missed and before you moved on, but it was really just to if you were able to record that I'm not in support of this, record my dissent. Thank you.
Is that a particular recommendation? I can put that against the one that I missed, obviously.
Again, it would just be the kind of the whole report, but I guess the considering the request to reaffirm the strategic direction and to accept the intention. I don't support that.
Okay, thank you, Lois. We will make sure that those views are noted. We're not being asked to make a decision today, but we'll absolutely ensure that those views are noted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is everyone content to approve all recommendations on page 44 as described? Thank you. Thank you all contributors, Sandra, and those on screen representing the NHS. Thank you. So, if we can move on to paper number 10 and our Angus Alcohol and Drug Partnership Annual Reporting Survey, and we have John with us to introduce the paper. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so this report is to seek endorsement from the IJB for the 2023-24 Scottish Government Annual Reporting Survey for the Angus ADP, which also provides an update on national direction and our local priorities. So as you'll be aware, Angus ADP is responsible for leading the development and delivery of a local strategy to reduce the level of drug and alcohol-related harm in Angus, working closely with local partners in the statutory and the voluntary sector. So the survey gives a local overview of the work of the ADP and has already been approved by the Angus ADP Strategic Group prior to coming to IGB today. So a brief overview of the report, some of the key highlights to pick out. We do have a new chair of the ADP, who is Ross Fitzgerald, Area Commander within Police Scotland, and he took over as chair in March this year, with Dr Kirsty Licence, Consultant in Public Health, appointed as Vice Chair, hopefully at the September committee meeting. The Finance and Commissioning Subgroup, which is chaired by myself, is reviewing all current grants and contracts to ensure appropriate governance, monitoring arrangements and allocations of funds are aligned strategically, and also ensuring that they are meeting the needs of the service population within Angus. Another couple of points to highlight, I think, within the report that are pertinent are around medically assisted treatment, or MAT standards. These standards define what is needed to deliver safe and accessible drug treatment and support in Scotland. And the report does highlight Angus improvements across MAT standards within the report, which demonstrates some of the good work that is being achieved and is ongoing. You'll note within the report there is one standard currently not in green, which is MAT 7, to ensure that all people have the option of medically assisted treatment shared with primary care, to ensure they also receive care for general health issues. And Angus is beginning to establish pathways for this, set within the wider context of GPs and community pharmacy. And we do actually have 2 new posts since the survey was carried out. One community pharmacist providing Buvidal injections, and another prescribing within the community, which is a really good step forward for us within Angus. And finally, a really key point within the report as well is the ADP's participation in the whole family approach, and also the family inclusive practice framework, which is carried out alongside local partners. We have an ADP family steering group which has been established, and really the sole purpose of that is to engage effectively with families affected by substance misuse to ensure that families have access to the support they need too. So you'll see within the report there are 2 recommendations for consideration today, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, John. So I'll just pause for questions in the room and on screen. I don't see any questions. Oh, is there a hand? Yes. Lois, in you come, please. Thank you.
Yes, a wee hand waving there. Thank you. I just wondered if could just kind of have a bit of an understanding and insight into this service user group and self-directed support and unmet need, and kind of what the kind of links, what the picture is and what the links are in terms of the options of self-directed support and the uptake, and also how within this group and individuals, service users and their families, carers, how has that been recorded in terms of unmet need as well?
Thank you, Councillor Speed. So I may need to come back to you with some further information on that in terms of the questions. So obviously the service user group specific to ADP is quite a defined group. It's individuals where there's a known alcohol or substance misuse issue and that there is support required. I think what the report has highlighted that there has previously been gaps where we potentially have not seen the need to support the families affected as much, and quite key work being undertaken alongside other colleagues, including children and families as well, actually, as far as the whole family approach goes. So that is really trying to seek and understand what some of those needs could be for families. So it's a relatively early piece of work, and it's also part of a national programme, the Family Inclusive Practice Framework. So I think there's some learning for Angus through this, through the work that we'll be doing, and going forward we'll have a much clearer plan of support for those individuals. At this point, the group is in its relative infancy, so the families that are engaging so far are given a clear view in terms of what they feel they need, and if that moves into SDS, then obviously that's an assessment that would be undertaken, and we've got quite clear process and protocol around that in terms of what needs can be met through self-directed support. But Councillor Speed, I'm happy to have a further conversation with you out with the meeting to try and maybe understand a bit more around those questions and see if we can provide a fuller response, if that's okay.
Nods. Great. Thank you. Thank you, John. We have a question in the room from Sam Riddle, please.
Thanks, Peter. John, just a question. The feedback goes 28th, the deadline, the 20th of June. What feedback do you get on that from Scottish Government, if any, or do you get a detailed report back as to on your responses?
Thank you, Sam. I'll need to come back to you on that one. As far as I'm aware, we don't have the full response yet from the Scottish Government. Jill, I'm not sure what the timescales are on that, if you're able to advise.
They don't give clear timelines, Sam, in terms of their response, but they will provide us with some feedback in areas that they feel that we should be focusing further on if they don't have a level of assurance that we've covered them within the detail provided. There's regular conversations with Scottish Government ADP team around the different areas of work, in particular MAT standards at the moment, but there's regular meetings that do take place with Scottish Government and the ADP and the wider ADARS team. Sorry, I should have said we are going to be bringing an annual report back in December, so there will be a further update then.
Thank you. I'm not sure if it's a question or a comment, so let's see where it goes. Page 75, in terms of question 16, the funding from the ADP to support education and preventative activities. So for young people 0 to 15, we see there's some funding there for Planet Youth. I guess it's a question to the ADP about how confident are we as a whole partnership that there is appropriate funding and activity in terms of early intervention and prevention for that group of children, given there's no funding coming through the ADP. Are we confident or have the mechanism to kind of assess what's going into our schools, I assume, or to educate young people in the prevention agenda? Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsty. Yeah, it's a good question, and I think the question 16 does highlight that there is limited support and resource going in for that age group. So I think some of this may come through the family support work, that whole family approach, as much as it's around impact, and we can assume that that's impact on parents. Of course, it's much wider than that. It'd be impact on children within that house as well. So I'm certainly happy to engage with you as the Chief Social Work Officer around raising that issue at the next ADP strategic group with Ross and see if this is something that we need to look at potentially within our finance and commissioning subgroup as well, to consider, do we have enough allocated funds towards that age group? So happy to engage with you around that, Kirsty.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Kirsty. Question from George, please. Comment, that's okay.
It's just in relation to recommendation 2. It's unusual. I mean, I'm obviously quite used to Angus Council reports to discuss the progress. I wonder whether that should have said note the progress. Discuss seems a bit, shall we get into little groups and have a discussion about it rather than be obviously a committee. It just seemed unusual, should I say.
I think it's just to give IGB members the opportunity to have a fuller discussion rather than just noting a position. Take that comment on board.
Noted.
And discussed. Okay. Thanks, George. Okay, if there are no further questions, I don't see any hands on the screen nor in the room, so I will take us to the recommendations on page 60, where we are being asked to endorse the Scottish Government Annual Reporting Survey submission and discuss the progress of national policy and priorities in relation to drugs and alcohol at a local level. Is everyone content? Thank you. Thank you very much. So before I take us on, before I take us on to paper 11, I just want to give due notice that we will take a 10-minute comfort break after this paper. I appreciate we're making good progress, but a comfort break is always for the benefit of our committee support as well as anyone else. So we'll take a comfort break after this paper, which is our clinical care and professional governance assurance report. And Alison, I believe you're talking to this. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. I won't reiterate everything in the report. However, I would highlight that we continue with our continuous improvement approach, quality management system, and that is working well for us with very good engagement across all the professions, clinical and social work, which is great to see, and that has been reinforced by the recent chairing of the group by John as social work lead, but we have got a running involvement of all our clinical leads, and that is hopefully supporting how well we're working as an integrated team. So that is great for us moving forward. The risks are highlighted there. Some of them are similar to what we've discussed before. A particular risk I would think the IGB need to be aware of is around recruitment of a female forensic medical examiner. There's a lot of interest in that, and we are making some progress towards that. That's for women who've been the victim of a sexual offence, having the availability of a female to support their examination, and we're hopeful around that. Quite a lot of work being put in. I think it's also worth highlighting the links between what our risks are and the later paper after our break, which will be around the prevention proactive care aspects of strategic planning, and that is fitting in with us identifying our risks and having the quality improvement approach across our strategic direction to mitigate against those, and that's very important for us. I've got Abigail with me, who's ably leading the team of support for clinical care and professional governance, and we both of us be happy to answer any questions you may have. I should lastly say that we are doing well around resilience planning led by Abigail, and that's going well, and that is an area of much progress. Thank you.
Thank you. So pleased you managed to remember and get that in, did you? and quite rightly so. Well done, well done all. Okay, certainly, Jill.
Thank you, Chair. It's just in relation to the link between this report and the Chief Officer update and the social work governance review that's ongoing. I think, Kirsty, you might want to come in and add a bit around that, but just to acknowledge that that is underway.
Yeah, thanks, Jill. So the Care Inspectorate have recently notified local authorities and health and social care partnerships that they will undertake a review of social work governance and accountability during this year. The review is conducted in 3 parts. The part that's underway at the moment is a review of key documents, and we are working collectively across the Council and the Partnership to demonstrate the governance arrangements that we have in place for social work. There'll be a programme of structured interviews with a number of local authorities, and then analysis before the final report is expected around March 25. So we welcome the opportunity, I think, to engage in the review of governance across Scotland. The final report will be Scotland-wide, and it will not produce any specific recommendations for local authority areas. However, we understand we will get some specific feedback that we can use, and it will be a really helpful tool to benchmark where we are in terms of the effectiveness of our governance and any developments we might want to progress. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alison, and also Kirsty for that contribution. Are there any questions or comments we have online? Lois, in you come, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. So yeah, just in relation to the second paragraph and the alignment to the strategic plan. And it notes that within that paragraph, it talks about human rights being upheld. I just wonder how much kind of responsibility and expectation is placed on the cared for person and their family, if they do have family support, to be able to kind of take forward any complaints, you know, whether that be with the care provider or with the care commission. You know, for example, a care manager or a social worker's role is very different, and they perhaps don't have the same input as they would have historically. So I just wonder how much pressure is there on, like, the cared for person who is vulnerable already, but to be able to then move forward with complaints. And just picking up from what Kirsty was saying there with regards to the Care Commission, I just wondered, how does Angus compare to other local authorities in terms of complaints made to the Care Commission or the SSC? Because I note that the kind of overall kind of feedback from the Care Commission is that there is an ongoing rise in complaints, and that 76% that are investigated are upheld. So I just wondered, you know, where Angus sits within that, and what learning is there from these complaints and what actions are being taken.
Thank you for that, Lois, and I'll invite Alison in.
Thank you, Lois. So in terms of including people that may be more vulnerable and how they're able to raise concerns, we do ensure that we have assurance around equality and diversity within all our services, assurance reports, and we have key indicators of that, and some of them are around making sure that we are have training for staff around people with dementia and other aspects. So we do take that equality and diversity within our assurance framework for all services. Regarding complaints, we do have regular reporting on every 2 months around all our complaints. When we have a complaint, we have a learning summary, and that is across council and health services. We're looking at making sure that we make these links. So we do have a robust complaints process. You're asking there around how are people supported to give us feedback, and we do have ways of supporting people, for example, using smiley faces in some of our services so that people can give the feedback. Regarding the independent providers, we do have an independent provider representative within CCPG, so that would be Nikki Worrell at the moment, who is also an IGB member, and I know that she's moving on, as we've discussed earlier. We would always have an independent sector person there. We have a yearly report from around our care homes and independent providers of risk, and we do have social work very much around the table, and we're really trying to make. I wouldn't think CCPG can replicate the role of Care Commission, but we do work closely, and latest updates, as you'll be aware in other papers around Lochbank, but we do make sure that we're identifying the themes, and we've got regular reporting around the Care Home Collaborative coming in as well. So hope that gives you some reassurance. We are trying to look at this as an integrated way, always looking at further ways that we could have feedback from people to inform our processes. I think happy to listen to any suggestions that you have around that offline.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lois. Thank you, Alison. Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. I've just got one question. That's probably a request and a question at the same time. Page 113, the chart with strategic risks on them. When you read them, they're all fairly self-evident, like sustaining this and increasing that. But the one at the end, strategic commissioning plan as a strategic risk, sounds a bit out of place, because strategic commissioning plan is what it's all about. So can we get some clarification of what that actually means? And is there better words you can use to describe the risk than you might as well say IGB?
So, yeah, I understand what you're saying, Andrew, there. It is around the fact that we have a limited financial resource, and that our strategic plans that we have are not currently within resource. And you'll see here that we did have that previously as a risk we got that under control for a while with a good strategic plan that was seeing us through, but now with the financial constraints we've got at the moment, we're having to review our strategic commissioning plan is not within budget, and we need to keep working on that. So that's really around that risk, what that focus on. Happy to share it with you.
Thank you. Jill will come in too.
Thank you. I think that it's around the deliverability of the plan, and just will certainly take that on board and maybe look at the title and the description of that risk going forward.
Okay, thank you, so Andrew, really helpful contribution. Are there any further questions? I don't see any hands on the screen. Any comments in the room? If not, I'll move us to the recommendations on page 96. We're asked to scrutinise and discuss the content of the report, consider and agree a reasonable level of assurance, and acknowledge that further reports will be presented as per our work plan. Everyone content to agree? Thank you very much. So I do propose that we take a 10-minute comfort break, preparing ourselves for Sandy and his finance paper, and the meeting will resume at 3:15. Thank you. Okay, thank you everyone. I hope you enjoyed the short comfort break. So we will continue with the rest of the agenda, and in particular number 12, our finance report, and Sandy is here to introduce this paper. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just go through the main part of the report relatively quickly, highlight a few bullet points, but I'd particularly like to go through some of the details in Appendix 5 of the report when we get there. So one of the early reports of the financial year, at this stage in the year, our projections for the whole year do move about a wee bit, and so when we come to the next IGB, we may see some movement on things as we have more information available to us. At the moment, in section 4.3 of the report, you can see that we are living within our means and roughly breaking even. I'm just going to reference a few key points in the report very briefly. In section 5.2, we talk about the position regarding out-of-hours services. We have developed a recovery plan for that service. We still see financial pressures in there, and it's just worth this board noting that our fellow IJBs in Dundee and Porthacaigh have been in contact with us about that financial position and just looking for us to do what we can to improve the position of out-of-hours services in terms of the financial projections. In section 5.4, which is about prescribing, we note where we are in terms of the pressures there, and we also note that we still have some governance issues that we need to consider regarding prescribing, and that ties back to some of the action points we saw at the beginning of the meeting. Section 5.5 refers to general practice services and family health services. Just to draw things together, we often reference risks in this area, general practice sustainability, and we know that that's a current issue in some of our services in Montrose, and these things do ultimately, can ultimately have an impact on some of our financial projections. In section 5.6 of the report, we talk about inpatient mental health services, tying back to one of the reports we saw earlier on today. We reference projected potential overspends in inpatient mental health services. Board members might recall we had challenges and many discussions about dealing with those overspends last year. And at this point, it looks like we will have to address similar issues with our partners during this financial year. Further on in the report, in section 5.8, where we're discussing Angus Council Directed Services, Adult Social Care Services, we note a series of variances, which are some wider variances, areas of overspend. They're documented here, but also some areas where we continue to underspend, as discussed at previous meetings, regarding things like unmet need, and also regarding our current commissioning of older people's care home beds. So there's a few themes that we've seen in previous reports. Moving on in the report, section 5.12, Chair, makes reference to reserves and reference to a reserve that was brought forward from the last financial year. Hopefully, board members will recognise that to being a similar issue to one that we have dealt with in previous years, and it ties in with recommendation 3 at the start of the report. And then, in terms of the main body of the report, section 7.2, just details some of the significant variances we are projecting at the moment within our financial position. That's the area where I think we'll probably see some movement as we go through the next 2 or 3 months in terms of firming up information for this year. So that's the main content of the report, but I think it's important Appendix 4, by the way, is the appendix about governance risk. Appendix 4 is the one that will re-emerge in future meetings in the Chair's Assurance Report for the Audit Committee, just to link those two things together. But Chair, I think it's important I make some comments about Appendix 5. Appendix 5 is a response to a previous request from the IJB when we considered our strategic financial plan in April of this calendar year. And we could see at that time a £9 million shortfall in our strategic financial plan. That was a £9 million estimated shortfall over a 3-year period running up to 26-27. The IJB requested us as a management team to bring forward a series of proposals, which you're seeing in this paper, to identify about £3 million of potential solutions to that challenge, not for delivery this year, but for delivery over the 3-year plan. So very much a kind of like a strategic planning response rather than an in-year financial response. And I think it's important for us to keep that in mind. This is us trying to be on the front foot rather than having to react to a set of circumstances around us. So it's about doing the right thing over the next 3 years. So what you then see in all the bullet points and sections of this is a series of bits of information regarding things like financial recovery plans that managers are taking forward already and are already contributing to some of improvements we feel we can see in our financial position. There is a series of operational interventions that we are hoping we can build into future iterations of the strategic financial plan. There is a series of strategic delivery plan opportunities that we're looking for the IGB to support today. Not in detail, all these things will come back to the IGB in due course with the appropriate engagement consultation all happening over the coming months and years potentially, because these are not immediate plans, they're things that we're setting out to develop. There's further narrative in sections 1.6, 1.7 regarding the service review and the contribution that can make to our financial position. And also we reflect in section 1.7 that we know we've had some underspends in some of our services. And this one refers to care home commissioning for older people services, and that has been running underspent for a number of years, and this takes out a small element of that. Chair, by the time we get to section 1.8 and hopefully for board members to see, you can see, I'm now going to, you probably don't remember this, but when the original ask was put out there, it was for a risk-assessed plan. Not just a list that added up to £3 billion, but a list that, when you allow for an element of risk regarding deliverability and other things, comes up to £3 million. So the list naturally adds up to slightly more than that, but when we risk assess it for things like deliverability and things like that, it comes to about £3 million. So I hope the board members feel this is the kind of thing that they were requesting. It's intended to be a balanced position, to be a broad-ranging set of plans that would be deliverable, not, as I say, this year necessarily. Some might happen this year, but over the duration of the 3-year plan. It clearly doesn't address a £9 million problem, but it's a first go at dealing with that, and we can come back to where we need to go further at another time. It's a mix of operational and strategic responses. As it says throughout the report, where there are operational aspects, these will be dealt with in line with the organisational policies regarding all aspects of taking forward projects, and where there are strategic issues, these will continue to come back to the IJB for further deliberation. The report has an EQIA attached to it that is meant to be a composite EQIA reflecting the whole proposal. So that's a quick run through, joining up where we were in April to what we're putting in front of people now. And of course, the main report is a general finance update. So, Chair, happy to take any questions. Thanks.
That's excellent. Thank you, Sandy. I do remember the ask, and I really do appreciate the response to said ask. It's really heartening to see how these interventions could at least contribute towards a £3 million reduction in the £9 million shortfall. And the fact that it's risk assessed too is heartening too. So thank you very much for your work in this area. So I'm just going to open up to the room and the screen for questions, first and foremost. And I don't see any in the room nor on screen. Just beat me to it there, yes. You just wait for me to say there are no questions on the screen.
I honestly don't. There must be a delay because it's up, but it mustn't. Yeah, I don't know what happens there. But
Lewis, in you come. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks, Sandy. This isn't really a financial question as such, but it's just within the body of the report. It touches on promoting an improvement in regards to continence and the use of the continence service. And I just wondered if I could have a bit more information on that and an update. And just previously, I remember asking in relation to this bit of work quite some time ago now, what was being done in terms of engagement with kind of partners, with places and spaces within the community, because there is a kind of real lack of public toilets. And I would imagine that part of that process of supporting someone to kind of not be so reliant on continence aids and pads would have to be taken very carefully to preserve dignity. And I just wondered, in reality, how easy is it to to go about that change?
Good question. Thank you, Lois. And Jill, Alison has kindly agreed to answer, sir.
So, Lois, we are the lead partner for Continence Nursing Services across Tayside. We are and Dundee have the physiotherapy service, and as outlined in our clinical care and professional governance paper, we had a report from the Continence Nursing Service through assurance report, and it was highlighted the need to focus on prevention and proactive care. In view of that, Lisa Henry, who leads our Continence Nursing Service, is very much connected with Blair Finlay behind us in the Prevention and Proactive Steering Group, and we are very much hoping to continue our work around prevention. Lisa's time has been very much taken up by the need to address the increasing spend on continence products, and we have identified that preventing incontinence in the first place is preferable. We are working, the Tayside Continence Group is next meeting on the 1st of November, and we're hoping to reinvigorate that with reporting through the integration workstream across Tayside, but certainly Lisa's linking up with Blair, capacity permitting, and we're really thinking around how we have that focus on prevention, and I'm sure Blair will be thinking around how we link with council colleagues about toilet access and other supports to meet people's needs as well as we can. Certainly probably not where we'd like to be due to capacity issues, but certainly on our radar, very much so.
Okay, thank you.
So, okay, Lois, thank you. Thank you, Alison. Okay, I don't see any further questions. Any comments in the room or on screen? If not, I'll take us to the recommendations on page 114. IGB, we're being asked to acknowledge the overall projected financial position, accept and note the updated financial risk assessment, accept and note the update in reserves, and request a proposal regarding the deployment of the financial planning reserve be submitted in October, accept and note the issue regarding financial governance, and support the recommendations set out in Appendix 5 regarding our financial planning. If everyone is content, we will approve all, and thank you, Sandy, very much for your work in this area and the paper. Thank you. Thank you all. We'll move on to item 13, our strategic planning update, and Jill will introduce this paper. Thanks, Jill.
Thank you, and thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to introduce this paper. This paper for August brings an update in relation to Priority 1 within the Strategic Commissioning Plan, which does focus on prevention and proactive care. And Lois, there is a section in this report specifically around continence, because it is something that we're really keen to do some work with and progress within the prevention landscape. So this is the detailed report determining our progress in relation to Priority 1, and I'll just invite Sally up to talk to the detail of the report, and Alison as well.
I'll go first, if that's okay, Sally. So you'll see in the report the wide range of work that's been done in this area. I won't reiterate everything, but just to make sure this links with the national direction around realistic medicine, values-based healthcare and a public health approach. And very much the ideas come from making sure we offer people an alternative to a pill for every ill type approach, that we give people genuine choice and also based on best evidence and best utilisation of resources early and focusing on the life curve. So you can see that we're making the link very much with our prescribing agenda and earlier around our improvement around clinical care and professional governance and also financial sustainability. I think it's worth highlighting the future projects that we've got. Very ambitious project around diabetes prevention. Hospital admissions often are associated with diabetes, and wouldn't it be great if we could target the right people to prevent and identify diabetes early and manage that. Also worth recognising the potential around working on climate change and how we respond to the climate emergency that we are in. Continue to look at collaboration across our interface with hospitals and communities, and wider around social isolation and loneliness being a key theme led through the Community Planning Partnership in Angus, but very much on our radar alongside access to exercise for everybody. So extensive work plan there, and thanks to Blair, Finlay and Sally and others and everybody in the steering group actually for supporting this work. It's been a joy and very much collaborative, and the way we're working together has been very inspiring, I would say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Alison. So, questions on the screen. First and foremost, if that's okay, Andrew, we'll have Lois Speed and then we'll come to yourself in the room. Thanks.
I had my hand up quick there. I thought I'm not getting accused of being slow again. So yeah, just actually continuing on with that theme in terms of incontinence. I guess I can fully accept that people who are incontinent, there's maybe things that they can do to help manage that, but I would imagine it's not something that on the whole is a choice. Although there can be things that can be done to improve the situation. But I'm just wondering, is there a link as well between unmet need as well? So if there are people who are sitting at home and are not having that care and support coming in, that's perhaps going to exacerbate the situation as well. Is there kind of any work being done around determining that? Does that then increase perhaps the use of the continence service and the spend? Yep.
So I don't have the experts in the room around this. We had the report previously about alternatives to daycare, so opportunities for daycare, and that certainly was a theme around continence. I remember from that, but we don't have Eunice here today. What I would say is that our continence services is carrying out a lot of assessments at community nursing. Colleagues are carrying out assessments, and they are very much doing that on a timely basis, and we have got quite a lot of assurance through our clinical care and professional governance around that. I would suggest as well the work that we have done on avoiding unnecessary catheterisation. So I'm comfortable that the continence nursing service are providing holistic assessments of people's needs and getting access to the right places. I'm not sure if there's any particular concern you have, but I'm happy to take that offline and with Lisa and the nursing service.
Thank you. Lois, John's going to come in as well on that one. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thanks, Alison. I suppose just to add to that from a social care perspective, that would form part of an assessment of needs, and should there be any personal care requirements resulting from that assessment of needs, that is something that would be met via a package of care. I think probably the question you're asking us is maybe more around that kind of preventative work, which I think Alison's probably covered often with when it comes to packages of care. At times it's dealing with issues around skin integrity and certainly trying to seek support for individuals to manage their continence at home as best they can. But I think the two do go hand in hand. So in terms of what Alison's provided as an update already, would also be supported through SDS options as far as a package of care goes. So hopefully that helps in terms of a response.
Jill, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thanks. I think, Lois, just in terms of any kind of direct link between unmet need and the continence team, that's not something that we've specifically looked into, but happy to take that away to see if there are any direct links with individuals that are waiting for a package of care, also as part of the continence team as well. Happy to look at that, see if there are any links.
Yeah, that would be great, because that was kind of the nugget of what I was asking. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lois. Thank you all contributors. And Andrew.
My contribution is commentary rather than questions, so if it would be better after any questions, but they all finished. Okay. Yeah, well, it's just to say that I've been a member, or fortunate enough to be invited to be a member of the steering group since it started, to give the service user point of view. So I've been very impressed by the level of creativity and commitment of the team. Though there's a good deal of refreshing, forward-looking, out-of-the-box thinking there, and there's real buzz to the room, but it is moderated by, obviously, a mechanism for controlling the allocation of available funding to the contributing projects. Really beginning to see a lot of uptake on tangible evidence of the benefits of prevention. It's early days, but there's an uptake now, and it's becoming visibly evidenced. The benefits to service users is quite obvious. The real legacy of this thing will be for future populations, as we all know. It'll let them live longer lives and healthier lives. So it is very desirable to keep this project going if we can in any way. I know we're under budget constraints at the moment, but for a relatively modest budget, this is producing, has the potential to produce quite a lot of return. It's like a spend to save situation. And it is, obviously, as everybody knows, it's a cornerstone of the first strategic goal that we've got. So it's just my tuppence worth to speak to this. Thank you, for Chair.
It's really helpful and really heartening to hear. I'll hand over to Blair, please, who's been involved in much of this work.
Thank you, Chair. It was just to add to Andrew's comments as well that we are looking to do a return of investment exercise. So it's exploratory at the moment. So Health Improvement Scotland are tying in with Angus Health and Social Care Partnership, Public Health Tayside Scotland, and local colleagues to look at our prevention programme, but look at things like waiting well, the general prescribing work that's going on as well, to show that return on investment. So I think what we need to show is some sort of evidence around that. So over the next year, we're gathering that evidence. It's a bit ambitious in terms of bringing all these things together to show that economic analysis, but partners are really interested nationally to work with Angus, and we've been recognised at local and national realistic medicine conferences. So yeah, it is a modest budget, and we're looking to NHS Tayside Charitable Foundation to continue some aspects of the programme, and the diabetes programme that we'll see us engage with at least 10,000 people over 2 years around healthy lifestyle. So just that as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Blair. Well done. Thank you. Jill.
Thank you. I think that's really helpful to hear, Blair, because I know some of that anyway, but Andrew, as a partnership, we agreed to give priority to this 2 years ago now, and we did say that we were in it for the long game. So just to reaffirm the assurances around this is something that absolutely is a priority for us as a health and social care partnership, and I think what Blair's just described around the work on return of investment is going to be really critical, and I think it is fair to say that Angus is kind of ahead of the game on this work, and we're trying to do it in parallel with other things that we need to do, but actually thinking kind of 5-10 years down the line as well, and I think we are really lucky in terms of the people that we have around the prevention and proactive care work.
Thank you. Okay. No further questions or comments. A really heartening paper. Thank you, Alison, for the narrative around it, but to Sally and Blair and your respective teams for all of your work in it. I think Angus is very well known for its extensive range of upstream preventative health initiatives, and you're right, this will be for generations to come. It's just a shame our directors of finance are only tasked with annual budgets, because it would be really helpful if we could look further afield in 12 months, such as the impact, the long-term impact and the return on investment that these interventions will make. So thank you all for your work, and please allow me to take us to the recommendations on page 156. We're asked to scrutinise and discuss the content of the report, consider and agree, just checking, reasonable level of assurance, I think that seems appropriate, related to prevention and proactive care, and acknowledge further reports will be presented as per the work plan. All agreed? Thank you all. Okay, so we move on to 14, and our Carers Strategy Update. And Sally, are you going to introduce this paper if you'd like to come and join us? Thanks.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just want to acknowledge the fact that unpaid care is absolutely vital to how social care is provided in Angus, and really thank the huge contribution that unpaid carers make in Angus. As you know, the IJB approved the Angus Carer Strategy for 23-26 in August last year, and it sets out how we will deliver the national health and wellbeing outcome related to carers. Interestingly, the information from the 2021 census unfortunately isn't available yet, but it will be released in October this year. But we know from the 2011 census that 10% of the Angus population are carers, or unpaid carers. So this report is presented to the IJB for assurance and really provides an update on the progress that's been made in the first year of the strategy. And as illustrated in Appendix 1, we have identified a number of actions to focus our efforts on, and the majority of the actions are on track. I thought I'd just bring to note a piece of work that we have completed. When we were gathering feedback to inform the strategy, we were told by unpaid carers that they really wanted more information about how to support themselves to be unpaid carers. And in June this year, we were delighted to publish our Angus Carers Information Pack. And this was produced for carers and with carers. And so far, the feedback that we have received has been really positive. And I'd like to thank Jane Hallam, our Project Officer for Carers, for her support with really getting this over the line. Table 1 within the report provides information about national and local indicators, and good progress is being made, and in some areas we have exceeded expectations, and we will discuss how we will amend any targets where we have exceeded our expectations. I would like to acknowledge the work of the Angus Carers Centre, who's commissioned to support the provision of information, advice and guidance to adult and young carers. And I would encourage you, if you haven't looked at the film that's highlighted within the report, to have a look at it, because it really shows so powerfully the invaluable work that young carers provide. And just linking into item 10 that we discussed today, young carers obviously do provide support for people living with substance use issues. So the Angus Carers Strategic Partnership Group, which has a wide range of attendees, it provides a collaborative effort to implement the Angus Carers strategy, and the plan, or the delivery plan, is regularly reviewed by the group. And I'm really grateful to everybody who really so enthusiastically contributes to the group. And we also have Dave McKenzie, who's in the room today, our IJB Carers representative, and we're working with Dave on a number of areas, and he's an active member of the Angus Carer Influencer Group, which is a relatively new group, but Dave, you're really pushing that group forward. Thank you, and because it's just so important to have lived experience of the caring role, which will shape further improvements that we make. So Dave, I just wondered if I could pass over to you to say a few words about the work you're involved with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Firstly, I would just affirm some of what Sally's saying. I think we need to acknowledge that I think on all fronts there has been progress as we would have hoped. And going back before that, it's probably because we spent a lot of time stripping the plan down to what was really important, and have moved on that. And I think we need to acknowledge the work that everybody has, not only the Carer Centre but others have done to take us forward and to get us to the point we are today. There are a number of specific comments I just want to make. Firstly, in relation to Table 1 that you referred to, I wonder if going forward it is possible to draw out for us what is new activity, because we're getting a cumulative figure and it's not easy to extract from that what progress we're making year on year. So that would be something I would hope we can build in. I don't know how easy or difficult that is in terms of data collection, but if we can, that would be really, really helpful. The second thing relates to Table 3. I had the benefit of having a meeting with staff to help me understand in some detail, and through Sandra, I'd like to express my appreciation of staff giving me the time and the feedback to understand this more fully. The narrative of the report suggests that all of that activity is going to be mainstreamed. I have one major concern on that at this stage. The large sum of money which is currently devoted to SDS packages for carers. In the conversations we had, there was an acceptance that at the moment we can't actually accurately say how much of that is being spent. We know it's all being spent within care, and that's where the money is sitting, but we don't know specifically how many carers are receiving what in relation to SDS budget. And there was an acknowledgement that we need, some work needs to be done on that. It leaves me with two concerns. One is we don't know what we're getting for that money or whether it's being spent on its original purpose. And secondly, if it's mainstreamed, it cuts off the possibility in the future of, at some stage, considering whether that may well be better spent in other ways of supporting carers. So there's a sort of two concerns I would like to express in that regard, and that can either be taken away or responded to right now, but leave that. Let's go. Beg your pardon. Sally mentioned the influencer group, and it is about now been running for about a year, which is still relatively young for a new group of people who are giving of their own time. And I think we still need to work at how that group interfaces with the partnership to get best value of the input and to make them and to help them feel that they're feeling a contributor. But I'm satisfied there's a will to do that, but it is still work in progress, and I think we just need to acknowledge that at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. And yes, we are going to continue to work with you and clarify your questions and answer your questions that you have around SDS. So thank you. I can give you assurance that we will do that. And for the Carer Influencer Group, Jane Hallam, the project officer, joins that group regularly. And we are going to take forward a piece of work, I hope, in relation to promoting power of attorney as well, which there was real support for that. So, but I think even though it is a fairly early formed group, the enthusiasm is really great to see, and it's really important that they feel valued, and I can assure you that we really do value that group.
Thank you. Thank you, Sally. We have Sandy in the room, please, and then we'll go to Lois on the screen.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just kind of also adding to the response Sally's just given and Dave's question about some of the funding in Table 3. I think your comments are obviously helpful, Dave, and it's helpful you've had a chance to speak with Sally and others about this table. This is not really a comment about the Carers Act, but when we receive funding from the Scottish Government, we'll get it 1 year, then the next, and the next, and the next, and suddenly you're 5 or 6 years into something, and you think, wait a minute, we're still kind of almost micromanaging something. So there's sometimes a tension between kind of almost an interest in mainstreaming something and treating it as business as usual. And that might kind of influence our thinking, because we then need to move on to the next priority as a management capacity, moving on to the next thing. But the points you've made about being able to keep an eye on this funding, because the way we might choose to deploy it in a different way at some point in the future, are important, because we don't keep that audit trail, that kind of eye on these funding streams. It makes it harder to do the kind of thing that you've referenced there, in terms of we might want to do something different in the future. So we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll obviously work through the groups that you're involved in, and Sally and other colleagues, to try and keep as clear an eye on that as we possibly can. And we made a reference in the paper to say keeping an overall audit trail of the funding. But I think it really is important to do that, so we can continue to make judgments about this kind of funding and how we deploy it in the future to best meet the needs of the carers that we're working with. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Sandy. And Lois, in you come, please.
Thanks, Peter. In terms of equity, and it states that carers will be free from disadvantage. One of the actions hasn't started yet. I just wondered if I could have an update on why it's not started. And also, just kind of looking at the statistics and the numbers of people that, recognise themselves as carers. I think the 2011 census stated that was, I think it was just over 10,500 people of the population of Angus, and we know that many people also don't even recognise themselves as being in that caring role, so the number is likely to be much more. But in comparison to that, the amount of carers who have a care plan in place is really cool. And I do often meet carers, some who actually are playing a significant role in caring for their loved one, who have never heard of a carers plan. So I just wondered what work has been done to try and maximise the numbers of carers who are receiving that support that they're entitled to. And also, it was recognised in a previous report around that unmet need, and that often carers will step in and provide that lower level need. But I just wondered what recognition again was given in terms of unmet needs and the kind of more significant role that carers are playing for those critical unmet need cases, and has that been recorded? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Speed. I'm probably best placed to respond to the latter part of your question in regards to the unmet need element. So you're absolutely right. There's unpaid carers play a significant role across Angus. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And as far as our local data is, we do record as best we can what needs are being met by unpaid carers. As it stands, though, our reports regularly to Scottish Government, we do have to class all unmet needs as unmet, even if those needs are being met by an unpaid carer. That's the current position. So I'm actually in attendance at a meeting on Friday this week with Scottish Government, who are going to be looking at the reporting from partnerships around unmet need. And that's certainly something I am going to raise at that meeting in regards to the recognition of the role of unpaid carers as far as unmet needs go. So again, I'd be happy to provide an update, Lois, in respect of that particular element of the question, if that's helpful.
Yeah. Thank you, because I do have a concern that carers are almost being included as part of that package, when actually, like you state, it actually is unmet need. Even although that they're providing that care, there is still that unmet need there, and they shouldn't be relied upon perhaps in the way that they can be. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Speedy, if I could just come in to your query about the one about eligibility criteria. So we are working on that at the moment, but we haven't, it's taking longer than expected. But we are so close to agreeing the eligibility criteria, and then once we've done that, things will snowball. So just to give you assurance that we are definitely working on that. And then in relation to your question about carers not being aware of the support that's available to them, we're working really, really hard with Angus Carer Centre, because the most important thing is that carers identify themselves early and are aware of the support that they can receive when they reach a specific level of having an assessed need. And that's one of the reasons why we've produced the information pack, so people can see all the support that's available to them and give them reassurance, I hope, of the support that is available if they need it. So as I say, we're working really closely with Angus Carer Centre. We've got lots of promotional work. Angus Carers Week did a lot of work to really highlight the role of carers. And one other piece of work that we're doing is through hospital discharge. We're going to have some posters around ward areas just to remind people or highlight the role of carers. And we're talking to our dementia liaison team and the prevention team to really help identify carers just as soon as possible and encourage people that it's okay to recognise yourself as a carer and to support people as early as possible.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you, John. Thank you, Lois, for the questions. We'll come to David in the room.
Sorry, so if I could just come back for purpose of clarity in response to Sandy. Can I take from what you're saying that at some point in the relatively near future we will be able to break down the spend, if not the budget, to know more clearly what is going where, because rather than the overall figures. Sorry, and is there any way that either I can contribute to that or others, carers, can help to that?
I think you're referring, Dave, specifically to the SDS packages issue or other things. Yeah. That has proved challenging through some of our IT systems and some of the reporting systems. We have made, obviously, we've tried to do that in the past and we're trying to keep on top of that. So it's still our intention to be able to identify that. I couldn't put a timeline on that. What I can do, though, is before we do a next carers report, I can put a comment in a finance report as to where we are with that, just to keep you updated on that one. So I'll try and do that before the end of the calendar year to give you an update with that. Okay.
Any further questions or comments in relation to this paper? There doesn't seem to be. So for me, Sally, thank you very much for your work in this area. David, you made specific reference to how many people contribute to this area of work, but I know that your contribution is highly valued also. So thank you very much for your support of this work. So I'll move everyone to the recommendations on page 177. We were asked to scrutinise and discuss the content of this report, which we have done, consider and agree a reasonable level of assurance and the progress made to implement the strategy, and acknowledge further reports will be presented, of course, as per our work plan. Thank you. Agreed. Thank you, Sally. Okay, so that moves us on to agenda item 15, our Advocacy Strategic Framework Progress Update, and John is going to speak to this paper. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to bring this report to IGB to provide an update on the Angus Advocacy Strategic Framework. You'll note within the report that the framework covers both children, young people and adults, and was previously approved by both IGB and Children, Families and Justice Committee with the request of a 6-month update. So that's what we're bringing today. You'll note within the report some of the context for this. The Mental Welfare Commission directs each health and social care partnership and local authority to have a plan that outlines the available advocacy services provided under associated legislation for both children and adults. So that includes the Mental Health Care and Treatment Act, the United Nations Convention for the Rights of the Child, and also the Children and Young Persons Scotland Act. It's obviously under several pieces of legislation depending on age and needs. It's important to note as well, and it's contained within the report, that independent advocacy is not the only mechanism through which children and young people can exercise the right to say what they think in matters affecting them. In respect of the report, it does highlight the Advocacy Planning Group and the work that they do. They meet regularly and record progress of actions within the delivery plan of the framework, and progress against these actions are summarised within the report. I'll not go through them all. They're noted there for you, but you'll note that progress has been made against most actions, with most complete and ongoing, with 2 still to start. As we have touched on unmet need on several points today, I think, in regards to unmet needs in respect of access to statutory independent advocacy, within the action plan you'll note the Community Wellbeing Centre will play a role in this going forward. That will be up and running by summer 2025, and unmet needs assessment data will be gathered, and an update can be provided at future IGB meetings on this. You'll note the 2 recommendations within the report, and I'm happy to take any questions. Obviously, Kirsty's here as well, who may be able to provide more in respect of children and young people. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, John. Okay. I'll pause for questions in the room. I don't see any on screen. Lewis, and you come back.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just wondered if I could have a bit of an insight in regards to some of the actions that are not started, especially in terms of transitions from children to adult services and from secondary school to college. And also, I previously mentioned that concern around some of the kind of groups, cohorts of individuals that do not fall under mental health or learning disability, but who have significant needs, support needs, such as physical disability and autism. I've mentioned this kind of time and time again, that concerns that they're not actually able to access advocacy, and I mean big advocacy with a capital A, as we've come to call it. And I just wondered again what work has been done to look at ensuring that those individuals who often do have significant needs are able to access advocacy support to help navigate their way through kind of systems and processes and their care world.
Thank you, Councillor Speed. I'll come in, but perhaps Kirsty, you can come in and add something as well. So in terms of the comment around transitions, so there is a transitions group which is chaired by Eunice McLennan. That sits under the Protecting People Angus Strategic Committee reporting line at the moment, and will continue to report to that group in terms of some of the actions. So advocacy support is part of the actions within that group, so that will be taken forward through that group and reported to the Protecting People Angus Strategic Committee with oversight of COG as well. So again, Eunice might be best placed at a certain point to provide an update, Lois, in respect of some of that work, because it is clearly important work, and obviously recognising that transitions are often where things don't go as well as they could, and that risks can emerge from that. So absolutely right and proper to pick up that question, and we'll continue to take that forward through the transitions group. Kirsty, I'll maybe bring you in at this point just to add some meat to the questions that Lois has asked. Thank you.
Thanks, Lois. Yeah, I agree. It looks slightly alarming that it appears we haven't started any work on UNCRC legislation, but we certainly have been completing quite a lot of work in the council on that. I think this relates specifically to what it means for advocacy. So just to give assurance that in terms of child-friendly complaints processes and what that looks like in terms of advocacy with a small a and supporting young people to raise issues, then that work is absolutely ongoing and it has started. I think we need to give this group the relevant time to get into this. It's still fairly early days. I think that does come back to the work that appears from the plan is nearing completion, or is now complete in terms of unmet need, because that will inform the business going forward, I suppose. To my knowledge, there are no plans to extend significantly current contracts to deliver independent advocacy beyond our statutory duties. So for children who are detained under the Mental Health Care and Treatment Act, for children who are looked after, and our local provision extends independent advocacy and referrals for children involved in child protection. That's where we are at the moment. Those are our duties. The data analysis that we do through contract monitoring shows that we are meeting that pretty well. We've got quite good arrangements that go across different providers in Angus, so Who Cares Scotland and Angus Independent Advocacy. However, as you say, there are indications in different parts of the system that other children might benefit from independent advocacy. Now, as I say, there's no plans at the moment that I'm aware of to extend that significantly. What we'll need to do, though, is give cognisance to the assessment this group come up with in terms of unmet need. What does that look like? What are our advocacy providers telling us about rejected referrals, for want of a better term, where they're being asked to provide services? I see there's interviews that have been carried out with various agencies, including education, so we'll learn quite a lot, I think, from our colleagues there about what children and young people are asking for. That needs to dovetail into a conversation about independent advocacy and meeting the requirements of the UNCRC and how we can support staff, support families, I suppose give effect to children's choices about who they want to advocate for them. So certainly in my world in social work, sometimes children will, we need to be better, I guess, at supporting them to choose the people and help them advocate formally for them. So it's a very long way to say, I hope that's as clear as it can be, but we do need to take, as I say, cognisance of that unmet need assessment. There'll likely be gaps that we'll need to fill, so that might take some time. And I guess whatever the IGB decides about when an update needs to come back, then that should be addressed fairly clearly. Thank you.
Thanks, Kirsty.
Thank you. Jill.
Thank you. Well, just to add to that, I think just to acknowledge that this is a 6-month update, so based on what Kirsty was saying and where things are going, and it might be worth adding a recommendation that we bring an update back in 6 months to feed back on some of that. I think just to acknowledge on the conversation around unmet need, not just from a children and young person's perspective, I think what I was hearing from yourself is there's potentially other groups where there is a level of unmet need there in terms of independent advocacy. We are in the process of reviewing our strategic risk around unmet need. We will need to define what that unmet need actually is, but if there are gaps that we identify, then we will need to look at how we commission services going forward to make sure that where there is a statutory requirement to deliver a service or provide a service, then we are taking that into account.
Thank you, Jill. That's helpful. Okay, are there any further questions or comments? I don't see any. So if I can take us to the recommendations on page 236. Firstly, acknowledge the progress of the delivery plan within the Angus Advocacy Strategic Framework. So thank you, Lois, for your question. I think that's been really helpful in gaining assurance of the progress being made. And in regards to the second recommendation, request a further update in 12 months' time, if we can agree that we'll amend that to 6 months and receive an update then, if everyone's in agreement. Lovely. Thank you. Thank you, John. So next up is our Equalities Mainstreaming Report and Equality Outcome Progress Report, and Morgan has joined us to talk to this paper. Thank you.
Thank you. So this paper today is to provide you with an update on the progress made in relation to our equality outcomes for 2022-2026 and to provide an updated Equalities Mainstreaming Report as well. So this report today really highlights the breadth of work that's been going on to progress with mainstream inequalities in Angus and really highlights some of the significant progress that's been made in relation to meeting our equality outcomes so far. Some of the key highlights within the report include the work that's been done on the combined impact assessment following legislative developments, which includes UNCRC and the inclusion of a child rights wellbeing impact assessment. We've also carried out a significant amount of staff training with new training materials developed for staff as well. We have improved our processes around translation and interpretation services within Angus to support accessible communications for all. And I did just want to draw your attention to within the proposals section of the report. Obviously, our current set of equality outcomes are for 2022 to 2026. However, we were expecting some revised guidance from the Scottish Government. However, that has been paused at this time. However, there is an opportunity for us to go ahead and revise our equality outcomes in 2025, which would bring the benefit of aligning us with Angus Council and NHS Tayside's reporting timeframes. That would really help to improve sort of collaborative working when it comes to mainstream inequalities and allow us to work together on meeting equality outcomes. So I just wanted to highlight that, but happy to answer any questions that you have on the reports.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any questions in the room? Nope. Any questions on screen?
Here, do you see me?
Yep, can now. Yep, in you come. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks. I can see that there's progress being made in this piece of work, and I just wondered if you can just kind of give a bit of detail around the risk associated with the report and work that's perhaps not being completed, and the impact that would perhaps have on service users, member of the community with a protected characteristic, and also just in all reality, I guess the more kind of challenged local authorities and partnerships are in terms of budgets and budget constraints and the impact that has on communities and people's rights to kind of exercise their rights around, you know, where they stay, who supports them, who looks after them. I just wonder how, you know, we're going to be able to balance that, and in reality, are people's rights going to be, are we going to manage to uphold them? You know, it does say that financial kind of cost shouldn't come into people determining their right to certain choices and certain adjustments or adaptations that should be being made. Yeah, just a little bit of a rundown. Are we going to expect to see more cases coming forward where people take out a legal challenge against the partnership or council?
Thank you. So just in regards to your first point around the risk, so we do actually, that risk was actually archived. So that was something that was being monitored through the Clinical Care and Professional Governance Group. And that was in relation to our compliance with the Act. And that was monitored closely by the Equality and Human Rights Commission. So we did receive an update from them that we are now fully compliant. We obviously continue to monitor that. And we're also now, there's a National Equalities IGB HSCP group that meets where the Equality and Human Rights Commission are a key part of that group. And that's where we'll discuss things like legislative development so that we can ensure that we remain compliant. So that's a really important key link for us within Angus, and we continue to ensure that we remain compliant and that we continue to make improvements with regards to equalities. So hopefully that gives you a bit of assurance around the risk aspect. And on your second point with regards to how we're upholding rights, I think a lot of this boils down to really good quality engagement. That's really making sure that we are listening to the views of the people of Angus, even when making tough financial decisions. We have to ensure that the communication and the engagement is at the earliest possible opportunity that we have, and to ensure that we really do listen to the views of people. So I think what you will see, and I hope that board members are already seeing this, are more thorough and in-depth combined impact assessments where that engagement is a key focus of the assessment and really helps to inform the decision making. Thank you.
In you come, Lewis.
Thank you. Just to follow up, if I may, and just tying it back to the previous report in terms of inpatient care and the move to Perth Murray Royal. Where does that sit in relation to kind of upholding human rights and people's rights to determine where they stay?
Yeah, with regards to that, so obviously this is NHS can forward an equality impact assessment in relation to that. On top of that, in Angus, I think this is really crucial for us to make sure that we conduct our own assessment. So although the decision making may not necessarily sit with us, and NHS Tayside are taking that equality impact assessment forward, we are also going to conduct our own full combined impact assessment, as we would like to detail all of the potential impact for staff, patients, families, carers in Angus, especially going back to some of the points you raised earlier around transport and distance, and really want to make sure that we have the assurance from NHS Tayside and other colleagues that that has been considered and that's been thought about. So that's a commitment from us to take forward our own assessment.
Yep, that's brilliant, and probably the most kind of bit of comforting and reassuring news I've heard all day, because it does feel like it's been a case of kind of run down, shut down, and I think anything we can do to help support those people to exercise the rights, then the more we can do, the better. Thank you.
Yep. Lovely. Are there any further questions or comments? If not, that just leaves me to take us to the recommendations. 252, we do have a couple of decisions to make. So firstly, it's to acknowledge the progress made, and I think we can all agree from what has been said regards the progress. We're being asked to approve, firstly, the Equalities Mainstreaming Report. Are we all content to approve? And also the Equality Outcomes Progress Report 22 to 24. Approved, and then we're also going to request a couple of updates in August 2025. Firstly, the Equalities Mainstreaming Report and the Equality Outcomes. Morgan, thank you very much. Okay, members, that takes us to our penultimate item on the agenda, which is our IGB Audit Committee Annual Report, and Sandy is going to speak to this, I believe. Or is it Andrew?
Yeah, can I? No, I'm not going to speak to it, but can I just introduce the report? It's basically a chronicle of the events of the last 12 months. It's pretty self-evident. And we've established already that Sandy writes these reports. But what I want to do, and because he writes the reports, he acknowledges just about everybody under the sun and the second things. And I would like to sort of acknowledge the work and the patience that Sandy shows with me with all my kind of inquiries and requests for clarification. So obviously you can't put that in the recommendation. But I just like it to be publicly or on the record that my personal thanks to him for the help that he gives me in doing that job as chair of the audit committee. So thank you, Chair. I'll pass over to Sandy.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I mean, the report is intended to just kind of set out what we've done throughout the year. To some extent, we started these reports before we did the regular Audit Committee Chair's assurance reports. So to some extent, the reports that you're getting more frequently in the IGB cover a bit of the same ground in terms of letting everybody know where we are. But this brings it all together at the end of the year. I think it provides a useful point for us to tie stuff together from a governance perspective. So, we're obviously happy to take any questions, but I would, I do want to reiterate that second recommendation. It's an additional commitment for board members to being part of the audit committee, and I'm really grateful from a professional financial perspective. There's a lot of financial governance goes through these routes. I'm really grateful for everybody who contributes to that. In terms of membership here, but also the input we get from our internal and external auditors and the people within Democratic Services who support this work as well, because it is just something on top of everything else that we all do. So thank you, everybody, but happy to take any questions, of course.
Thank you, Andrew and Sandy. If there aren't any questions or comments in the room, and there doesn't seem to be, I will take us straight to the recommendations on page 313, which asks us to note the annual report of the IGB Audit Committee for year 23-24, and of course, as mentioned, acknowledge everybody's input to said work, in particular the Audit Committee members and those supporting the committee, including Angus Council's legal governance and change services and internal and external auditors. We'll consider those items approved. Thank you very much. So that takes us to agenda item 18, and it just leaves me to confirm the date of the next meeting, which will take place on Wednesday, the 30th of October 2024 at 2 p.m. I just wish to thank everyone for their attendance in the room and also on screen. It was lovely that you were able to join us. Chris Boyle's train failed to arrive again, so it's great that he was able to join us electronically at least. Jill.
Thank you, and I have been asked to read out something on behalf of Julie. So Peter, on behalf of Julie, myself and the rest of Angus IGB, just to say thank you. Ron, I think your mic's on. That's it. So Julie is saying, Peter, I'm so sad to be missing today your last Angus IJB, but I'm very pleased you were able to chair it at least once before you leave. You have been a fantastic Vice Chair. We have worked well as a team, bringing, I hope, just the right amount of challenge balanced with support. Of course, it helps when people share similar values, and I do believe we have been incredibly fortunate in Angus to benefit from your experience, skills and wisdom and humour. Thank you for all you have done for the IJB, for NHS Tayside and for the NHS Tayside Charitable Health Foundation, which has flourished under your leadership. On behalf of Angus IJB, may I wish you all the very best for your future endeavours in an amazing new role. I'm sure we haven't seen the last of you. Warmest wishes, Julie. Thank you. And on behalf of us.
Thank you, Julie, who's no doubt watching at some point later on tonight or tomorrow. Thank you very much. Thanks all.
Can we stop the live stream, please, Sandra?